Welcome back to the channel, guys. And this is going to be part 7 of my Gundam Beginner's Guide. The first 6 parts, if you need to go back and watch them, or if this is your first one, you haven't seen them, I suggest you go and watch those first. The first 3 are about the anime, so that you get more information about how that works, how to watch it, and things like that. The other 3, 4, 5, and 6, are about the model kits themselves, the different types, what their pros and cons are, things in that nature, so you have an idea of how those work and again where you should start. The next 3 are going to be actually about how to build them, and it's the reason why I decided to make these a separate 3 is because this is going beyond just talking about them. This is actually doing them. So if you want to get to this step, this is more so for people who want this to be a hobby of theirs. So if you're not that interested, that's fine. But that's what these 3 are going to be. And I appreciate you joining us today. So let's get into it. So for this particular part, I'm pretty much just going to be talking about the tools. So there's a few tools you're going to need. There are 2 that you absolutely have to have, but you do have some optional tools as well. So the ones that you have to have, one of them, of course, is going to be a pair of nippers or modeling clippers, whatever you want to call them. They're really essential because you don't want to pull these parts off the runner. And this is true for really any model kit. You don't want to pull them off the runner because it can damage them. You can even break the part. So you don't want to do that. And you want to try and clip it relatively close to the part. That way you don't have as much of a cleanup to do later on trying to get the nub off. Depending on how good quality your nippers are, you can just cut off the nub and it will be totally fine and you can just move on. But if your nippers aren't that great of quality, because, for example, if you was to try and do this, you probably want to start off with a cheaper pair to see if you even like it, because you don't want to invest a ton of money into this and then, you're not really a big fan of putting these together. So if you start off with a cheaper kit, a cheaper pair of nippers, you might realize that they're not quite that good at what they're supposed to be doing. And over time, they'll dull faster, meaning that they'll start pinching the plastic instead of cutting through it. And it'll be harder and harder to start cutting pieces off. But in general, you just want to cut them kind of close and then cut off the last bit of the nub. But if it's too dull for your nippers to actually get that close to the plastic, that's where you have the second tool, which is an X-Acto blade, or also known as a hobby knife. You can really use whatever you want. I use X-Acto blades because they're just better and they're more affordable and they're everywhere. And of course, this is the second most important tool you need. This is why you want this one is for a few reasons. Number one, obviously, is for cleanup purposes. Just in case your nippers can't get the nub that's at the end of the plastic, you can cut it off yourself with the knife. And that's a very important thing. Now, you also have an optional tool here, which would be a filing or a model filer or like whatever. It's basically kind of like a nail file, but for plastic. And you want to use these filing sticks for... You can also use... sandpaper. Some people prefer that. I prefer the sticks personally, and that's usually what they actually recommend in most Japanese like hobby stores or hobby places. They prefer the sticks, so I do too actually. But the thing is that these are optional. You don't have to have them, but if you cut off the plastic and there's still some left, and it's like there's a lot of like extra things still around, you can use that to file it down, and that's kind of how you do some cleanup, and then you can just wipe away the rest of the plastic or whatever. And if you cause a little bit too much damage with that file, you can just get a little bit of paint in there and it'll be fine. Use a marker or something. But those are the three tools. One of those, of course, are optional. The other two are way more important. The other thing you can use for the hobby knife, by the way, is that if you ever need to open parts, sometimes getting the knife right in the middle of those creases and kind of prying it open with the knife is one of the best ways to do it. It's dangerous because you can cut yourself, but it is definitely the best way to open them at times, because whenever you close these plastic pieces together, they're not technically meant to be pried open. So they're really sealed together really tightly. And if you have to open it, you are going to weaken that seal. Hopefully you only make that one mistake and then you can fix it and then close it back up and it'll be fine. You just don't want to constantly keep opening it, because then it's going to get really loose. And those tools all can be bought at different places. You can get them at just about anywhere. You can get them at like Walmart in their little hobby section. I'm sure you can get them there in the arts and crafts section. But if you can't find them there, you can go to hobby stores like, Hobby Lobby or whatever. More than likely they'll have them. You can go to any modeling shop that's near you if you live near one or if you know of one. I'm pretty sure they'll have tons of them, because why wouldn't they? It's a modeling shop. They have model kits, but they also have the paints and everything else. So if they have all that, I'm sure they'll have the basic tools that most model kits would require for you to have. And that's why I suggest going there probably first. But if you are too uncomfortable going out in public, or if you're too worried about the coof or something, then I suggest going for the online version, going online and buying them. Now, online, you can get these at various places as well. Amazon is probably going to be your best bet. Probably to get them at the cheapest possible price, too. Because you can find some, like, kits of, like, modeling tools that are, like, $15, and they come with a pair of nippers and an X-Acto blade. So, you could try that. I don't personally think those are the best quality ones, but if you're just starting off, then that might be the best way to go, because you'll get some other tools as well, maybe even some files. But, if you don't, that's fine. The problem is, though, is that those aren't the best quality, and sometimes you might want to get something better. You can also, of course, get the same kind of things at other places, such as hobby stores that have online shops, or if you prefer to get things from shops that sell model kits, such as like Gundam stores, like USA Gundam Store or Canadian Gundam. You can probably also find them at different places like Gundam Planet and even Bandai.com or whatever. You can go to these different different places that sell Gundam kits primarily and get supplies from them. Now, they may have different brands. They'll probably have like Bandai's brand for hobby knife and nippers, which are not that expensive, but they're about mid-grade when it comes to the tools. That's how I would describe them. They're good enough to where you can be really impressed by them, but they run out. They dull pretty quickly, and you don't want that. You want them to try and last as long as possible. So the best ones, in my opinion, to get are the most expensive ones, but that's only, of course, if you have already tried this out, you've enjoyed the tools, you've used the tools, you understand how they work, and you've made a few model kits, and you feel like this is going to be something you want to do for a while, and you don't mind investing in it. Then I suggest you go for the more expensive, like top of the line tool sets, such as God Hands. They are a Japanese company, but they're really good. You can get like the God Hand nippers, they can go for anywhere between like 50 to like 100 and something. They're really expensive, but they are really good. Like, I've bought my God Hands like 2 years ago, and they're still sharp enough to cut plastic and go right through it like butter. So they are really good. The only problem is that they're very, very thin. so they don't have very strong durability. So like if you are very clumsy and you drop your tools a lot, especially on the ground, you might want to think twice about getting these because yes, they're very good quality tools, but they're also very fragile and you don't want to break your tools. So unless you can build build stuff without dropping it, or you feel like you can do it without dropping it too much, then I suggest go ahead and getting some God hand nippers, and because they also make other tools than just the nippers. Because most people think of God hands, they only think of the nippers that they make. Which, don't get me wrong, those are like the best thing that they do make. But they also make other things like Exacta blades and different sandpapers and filing sticks or whatever. They have tons of different tools in there. They even have different paint brushes. So if you're someone who wants to paint your kits, they have them there. And that's another optional tool you can have is paintbrushes. Because not everybody wants to paint their kits. So if you do, there you go. You have another place you can get them. So you have like different quality. You have like cheapest tool, like some of the cheapest tools. They're definitely meant for beginners, but they're not terrible. It's just if you want better quality kits at the end, you want to use the best type of tools you can possibly get. Then you have like mid-range tools, which is like Bandai's tools themselves. They're really good, but they will dull pretty quickly, at least compared to like the most expensive ones. And the most expensive ones are the best tools you could find. They're really good quality. They can just cut super close to the model plastic, and you won't even have to clean up anything sometimes with those nippers. Like, that's how good they are. But on the downside is they're also very fragile and they are pretty damn expensive. So that comes down to whether or not you actually enjoy this and you've already built a few of these kits with some cheaper quality tools. Because you can get some Exacta blades for $1 when you can go, I think theirs is like, for their Exacta blades is anywhere between like 12, 15, or 20, maybe $30 for an Exacta blade from God Hands. I don't know. I never looked it up. I don't have a God Hand Exacta blade myself. All I have is the nippers. But you don't really need the God Hand Exacta blade because really any of them work just as good. But if you want to, you could get them from them, and it might be better or it might be worse. I don't know. You'd have to tell me if you try it or not. But I'm pretty sure it'd be better. I'm pretty sure. But anyways, you have different qualities of tools, but the two that you absolutely have to have if you want to start this at all is nippers and an Exacta blade. The optional tools like a sandpaper or a file stick or a paints or paintbrushes or whatever, those are all optional tools. They're not necessary. The only two that you really need, nippers and Exacta blade. That's very important because you don't want to be kind of stuck without them trying to build one of these kits. Because these kits don't require glue, typically, then you don't typically need that either. Maybe have a little bit of glue on standby is okay, but for the most part, they're supposed to just snap together. And because everything snaps together, the two most common things you're going to be using is the nippers and Exacta blade to get them off the runners, and then clean up the little bit of plastic nub that's left from the runner, and then moving on from there. So, sorry for this one being so short. I just wanted to get this video out pretty quickly because, I've been pretty late on my uploads, and recently I've gotten a new job, so I didn't do an unscripted video last week. I'm going to try and do 2 this week. I'm not going to give any promises, but I'm going to try and do 2 to make up for not doing 1 last week. But hopefully you guys can forgive me and we can just, enjoy 2 extra videos this week, or 1 extra video this week. But I appreciate you stopping by and watching this video. Hopefully this is a bit helpful to explain what you need in order to, and also how to get the tools. And, helping you get into actually building the kits. The next 2 videos are going to be longer, and they're going to be explaining other things, like how to get the kits and how to actually build the kits and what certain things mean and all that stuff. So stick around for part 8 and 9, and hopefully after 9 we'll wrap this whole thing up. So this has been Yokai, and I'm out of here. Please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment if you want, and share the video. I'd really appreciate it. It helps me grow. I want to try and get to 20 subs before like the halfway point of the year. Like I think it's July. So before July, I'd like to try and get to 20 subs. It'd be a nice like little victory. But anyways, thank you.